we are back. Welcome on back here for another fantastic edition of our weekly workshop, Traders Talk, inside our live trading room and on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, the works. So great to have Steve with us. Andrea Ryan, who had said just before the Levitan stock, Lian, just out of nowhere making a pop live. And that's obviously one of a few different trades we'll jump to, but great to see all of our students alike inside our live trading room. Just give me a quick chat back for all of us here collectively. Just let me know if you can hear me loud and clear. It should be good to go across all ends. So hey, great to have Prashant with us here on YouTube as well, joining us today. And again, there is so much to talk about so far. So for all of our students that are enrolled in our live trading room, that is, I'll have a chance to get through all of your questions. Actually, there is just too much to really talk about with the market pushing up, with crypto exploding, with INVO, the 400% gainer that we had yesterday, mind you. And then today we had Lian, the stock that a lot of us were talking about just before. INM from pre-market, ASTI, just you name it. So let's actually dig right into it now. And actually, there's a few stocks, crypto stocks, making a pop back up. Mara being one of them. I am a happy camper on this move right now, especially as we're in Traders Talk. All is well here. So with that, there's other trades that are moving with Mara. We got Riot making a move up over 15%, trying to make the same type of squeeze back up it is. This stock I am a huge fan of. So alongside Mara, I am very bullish right now on this stock, CLSK. Long-term chart doesn't look too great yet. This move today at least definitely confirms what could be ahead. But right now, this is looking like a Fausto flag. Higher lows trying to move back up towards the high of the day off of 510, 511. These are all crypto, namely Bitcoin mining companies. For anyone that is new here, at least, give me a quick sec, actually, on social media, inside our live trading room. 1 second. Getting a small little hiccup. 1 second. On social media, good to go. Inside our live trading room, just had a blip. Let me reset my mic there. All right. Test 1, 2. Should be good now. Jithcath, Phil should be back on the horn now, right? Caught it early. Hey, we caught it early. Rare audio issue from my side. So, hey, for all of us collectively, basically, the Bitcoin mining stocks, you know that we've been following. And for more or less, Mara is one of the companies, one of the crypto mining companies that own the most amount of Bitcoin within their like treasury, within their like investment. And CLSK is a company that actually is a cheap stock that not many would really think too much about at first when it comes to these like miners. But actually recently, JP Morgan came out with a report saying that it's like their top Bitcoin mining stock to work with going forward. That's not my biggest reason. It's actually more so the long-term chart. Looked like this was actually about to flip support. And we started to see that actually just yesterday. And now we had a nice gap up this morning, referring actually more so to here, the last month or so. So began to squeeze up there yesterday, up towards 445. Nice little chart level here, chipping away at it over time. Couldn't hold it and broke under it. Support should become resistance. And it squeezed up really nicely today. So that could be used as a swing level over time, perhaps on a deeper pullback. I don't think that's going to be the case, though. I think that with how Bitcoin's been looking, we could see a really sharp squeeze up much higher, actually, over time, like 40,000 perhaps, then maybe a pullback. But with that said, like, hey, if this just goes for the remainder of the day, look at this higher lows still trying to make the breakout. So there is a lot to talk about. Now, let's actually talk about this beginning from yesterday, the Mara trade. This was a hell of a move. A lot of us were in this really from the get-go yesterday morning. So let me ask us here. First thing for Yehuda, very nice conversation with just before, and Jith and Phil, Kathleen, who all now could hear me. I appreciate it. What's the first thing that we do when it comes to plotting levels, when it comes to finding where our big levels are? What is the North Star? What is the first thing that we do that we feel most comfortable with, the thing that we feel most trustworthy of? What are we looking at? There could be perhaps two answers to this question. There could be two answers to this question, perhaps. And I'll tell you what, our platinum and diamond students like Phil and Yehuda and Sam saying it too. But actually, yeah, Sam and that on top, I appreciate that too, the opening print. So really every answer that was in the chat board is honestly head on to like perfectly, and the opening print. So 50-cent levels, whole numbers. Just that's your like, in terms of abstract assumed iceberg levels. psychological levels, you could potentially say, for a cheaper stock, those are going to be important. 50-cent levels, whole numbers. Like that's always like one of the first things I think about. And then what I look at least, is Bookmap. I look at level 4. So obviously I know like 80 to 85% of our students have Bookmap level 4 at this point. Here, let me ask us, this is from yesterday's move, of course, but if you were identifying this as a day trade yesterday morning in pre-market, you saw it up like however much percent in pre-market, where do we see these big iceberg levels, folks? Where do you see the orange and red lines going across the page from left to right? What is out there the longest? What's the line that's out, the lines that are out there the longest amount of time? Now, a lot of us, Loren, Brian, Joyce, all saying $8.30, $8.30. Now, that clearly is going to be your resistance up top, right? Your resistance, it looks about like 18, 19,000 shares. There's actually like 17,000 here as well at 820. So like, this really is your big level. Then it's kind of blocking everything here at this point, 830. Good call. What else we got? That's not the only level there that you could identify with. There's another price that's showing an iceberg that's out there for over an hour's worth of time. Over an hour. That's a lot of time when it comes to day trading. Sam and Yehuda at first. And John saying it. 775. Right here, right? After 8 o'clock, pops up. Big iceberg there, right? So it's out there going into the whole market open. It's like 30,000 shares. It's my whistling skills. How about that? So what happened this morning? Well, it pulled back at the open. Could I ask us here? It's class week. I got to be annoying with it. I'm going to ask you my catchphrase. My best entries to buy a stock are directly after what? For Jeff and Yehuda, Phil, John, and certainly if you're a longtime member here, let alone on top of that, a full-blown student of CTU, my best entries to buy a stock are what? Sydney, that's the other answer, and that's not the answer to this one just yet. You're getting ahead of yourself there, right? You got a question to ask before that at least, but my best entries to buy a stock are directly after what? It breaks through a big level. Now, the emphasis that we got to focus on here, or the part we got to emphasize, is on the way up. Because, hey, if our best entries to buy a stock were after it breaks through a big level, and we're buying a stock after it breaks under a big level, what are we doing? We're catching a falling knife. Actually, worse than that, we're buying under it after it's already broken. Can't do that. Here, you actually got to wait for this to break under the level because, like I said, if it crashes that price, then there's no entry. Then that support gets flipped into resistance. But here, we look for what's called the under and over when it comes to support, at least. Resistance is resistance. Breakouts, we'll focus on. But like under and over, this makes as beautiful of a move as I would ever want it to make. So again, if you're like a gold student, platinum, diamond student, you're with us like in our classes more times than you're not. I know not everyone can make it for the live classes, but I saw students that were in the phase 1 class earlier this week that were, that are longtime students, have been with us and hearing me for years. So it goes to show that for those that are there with me more often, you're going to be more reactant to this move. Simple as that. You prep up your levels, you do your homework, and you focus on the mechanics of how to take the trade. And then on top of that, you set a tight stop. You got to obviously play defense after and make sure your stop is set here. But Sydney, let me ask you, when a stock breaks through a big level and then we jump in, what are we getting shortly after, my friend? Because that right there is the answer I was going to ask for here. And that's a big move shortly after. A big move. Now, again, if we don't get that big move up and it keeps hitting that 75 price, guess what? We're going to get a big move. That big support's going to get broken through and it cracks. So from here, obviously, we got what we wanted. It popped it like immediately up to 805. I don't think that's necessarily a big move. Look at the cyber clock. We got a little bit more time till that illustrious 10:15, 10:30 reversal hour, right? Maybe for $1, $2 stock, that could be deemed as a fairly big move, 25, 30 cents. INVO from earlier this week INM from this morning in pre-market, Leanne, the cheaper the stock is, like that 20 to 30 cents is really good. Have we not seen Mara make like a 30% move in one day? Have we not seen Mara make like a $1.50 move in one day? So why can't we get like, 50 cents out of that? Why can't we get 75 cents out of that total $1.50 move? We're not trying to be perfect, but we're trying to at least get enough meat off the bone to satisfy us. And at least based off experience, perhaps we can anticipate to see a larger reaction. So we did have, in terms of being a perfectionist, this did actually make the perfect move that we can hope and dream for. Cookie doesn't always crumble that way though, right? So I will say that played out flawless to strategy, but otherwise though, afterwards, yeah, you got like a hell of a move up, moved level to level up to 830. So that would be perfect in its own, or even a little under that, take the money and run. But again, hey, for as much as this nips resistance and keeps testing resistance, we went over this in class to a much greater extent in phase one yesterday. Catch back with us tomorrow. We're going to continue that conversation with charting. But the more times it nips this resistance over time, not only should it break it and make a proverbial big move shortly after. Again, another catchphrase, another question I got to ask you. It's class week, so I know you guys hate me already, but when a stock breaks above resistance and it runs off of it, we'd like to think that resistance should look to become what initially? Initially what? Question from Luciano coming in here. I got a lot of questions, folks, coming in, so just give me a moment. I saw from private chat. Got to attend to that on the Leanne trade. Make sure I don't forget that. I should get my private chat window open here, probably. Be a good idea, Josh. There we go. Support. Stock breaks above resistance. We'd like to think that should become support, right? Okay. Okay. I think that's all that needs to be said there, right? Okay. Now, the first test that in which it came down to that price, it made my famed under and over. So this actually generated a beauty of an entry at first. Now, am I like a fan of this move as it's sideways? No. Look how long it takes for it to break out. It's like 40 minutes of my time, 50 minutes actually of my time. My time is valuable. And I hope you think your time is valuable too as a day trader, because if not, then you're undervaluing yourself. It is to say at least that we should be seeing higher highs. And the more I'm watching this, the more I can become distracted and miss a better move. There might be a better stock that I could be trading then. Maybe, just saying. So you don't want to get stuck watching the grass grow. So I'm not necessarily doing backflips over this kind of stalling out for 50 whole minutes of my time. That's really how I think of it. But does it break lower? Does it make a lower low? No, it doesn't. It actually holds double bottom and then higher lows the rest of the way through. Now, what do we say, folks, really quick, as far as like support resistance? Where are we more likely to focus on support resistance? Like, where are the icebergs most likely located? We said it before, Joyce and a few of us. Where are the icebergs most likely located here? Because we didn't even talk about $8. We're not going to talk about $8. There's no need to. This thing's off and running. We'll talk about 850 though. So 850 was high of the day level at first here, generally held under 850 here at this point, didn't test it. So I would expect normally for there to be like, initial false break over 850 at first, like here, first candle. You're definitely expecting false break, pop and drop. Then we'll see what happens. But otherwise, again, the more it nipped it, even in that shorter 3-minute concentration, it was strong enough at the time, obviously, to realize that larger move up shortly after. So with that, it moved up, it held support. Now, this is where things get cool. This is where things get really interesting. I'm giving you a whole phase one class here in like 10 minutes. So this stock Mara had a big level on the daily chart and had a couple of them. Obviously, you could see these too. In fact, if you follow Fausto on social media, follow him on Twitter, actually, we ended up making a few tweets about this going into the market open today. I'm going to try and load those up right now. Right there. Follow us at Cyber Trading U, perhaps. But you could see two significant levels from this year to watch, 862 and 1066. We'll get to 1066 in a second. You better believe that. Look at this. We had big support back from April into July, right? Like 3-4 months at a time here. So maybe this wasn't super strong at first. There's a few points where it touches, like perfect, actually. But, it's not flawless at first. This is flawless. Okay, it was testing this as support at first. It couldn't get the higher high. It dropped off. All right, it was holding under it as resistance for the last week, I guess. We weren't really as inclined to focus on Mara the last week or so, but whatever. Well, yesterday we ended up seeing this smash over that 861, 862 price, right? And what I'll do here now is plot a line there because you could see, well, wait a second, this didn't pull back to 850 to test it as support. It just continued to hold over a higher price, didn't it? So it ended up effectively holding over the historical level that we were focused on, like 861, 862 price right there, right from our tweet. Broke above resistance there, became support under and over. It did it a second time where it's like you're thinking it could crash. So easy to say in hindsight, this was like the pivot where it made the slingshot under and over again. But the more times it does test this, you would think like, crap, this might sink. So it is to say, at least, this does like really hold a second time, makes the higher high into the market close session, 3 p.m. So beautiful move. All right, now what we'll do is we'll go back to Bookmap because we got at least this 1066. I mean, it was in this range for a long time, broke it above as resistance here. This was a great support test, led to a great bounce off. Like I think this was even fake news that led to this pop, but we'll take it as a swing trade looking at this potential support. Well, you already see what happened. I mean, story's already kind of spoiled here looking at the daily chart right there, but over time this morning, and if you're wondering like, hey, like, you're just kind of doing this right now, like this is easy to see after the fact, right? These were my levels that I took the time to plot at 8:15 Eastern time this morning. So you tell me, folks, I think preparation pays off. I got a bunch of crap on this screen, probably too many lines for your eyes there, but nonetheless, this morning on Mara, this had iceberg support at 950 and at 955. So I was looking for this to break into this and make a slingshot. And that would have been like the ultimate buying opportunity. Cookie did not crumble well there for me because this didn't make the exact perfect move that I wanted. Like in relation to strategy, at least, this actually was perfect in the sense of like holding right over this skinny line. But I want under and over. So with strategy, I don't get what I want there. But over time, from there, it leads to the slingshot above the next level. Easy to say, but that's what leads to the entry. And then even from there, like $10. Make this fat here, make it really easy on the eyes, this line. Notice in the morning, pre-market, this was testing $10 early. It broke over it. Let me ask us here on the chat board, Margaret and Luciano, perhaps over time. Definitely we'll look to have you go through our classes and you'll learn this over time. And Michael, great to see Michael with us. Long time, Mike. Actually, I've seen Michael in the chat here and there, but I got to catch up with you, Michael. It's been a long time. And Don and a few more of us here on top. When a stock breaks above resistance, what color are we getting on time and sales? When it breaks over that iceberg at $10, what color on time and sales are we getting? Getting green. And what do we nickname green as, folks? What's the nickname that we give green? My nickname is Josh. My legal name is Joshua. So the reason I bring that up is because what happens if it fails to make the pop? But in terms of a longer picture here that we have, buying, even this buying, it doesn't get the job done. It doesn't look good, not healthy, lower highs. Even here, it doesn't make the big move yet, but buying. The more times it's nipping that resistance with, good consistency. If we keep seeing the stock test resistance, and especially in a shorter time frame, we should expect to make this pop. So it's easy to say, but after the open, it pulled back. It did break over this line in which that provided a great entry. But then from there, what's easy to say is this actually led to a great entry on top once it broke over 10 again. Like the rebreak over 10, beauty of a move. We are getting a pullback right now. I'm happy to be out of this trade at this point. So the Mara position, I guess I got stopped out on as it ended up pulling back here. But if it's not making a big move up higher, I guess there's only one other way it's going to go. So Geez, we'll see what happens to this trade later on. But what I wanted to at least attend to, the long story short on this, was that if you focus on this line, this was 1067. That was the strong long-term historical level that we were focused on from earlier this year. By long-term, I mean back from like May, June, July time. Resistance became support. I actually have a doji on the daily chart right here, right near it. So there's a lot of fuel to the fire that played into 1065, 1067, 1070-ish area to act as that top. And actually, if you look on Bookmap, there wasn't much resistance on that trade. Man, this thing's sinking. Yeah, this thing's really dropping now. It looks like Bitcoin likely making a sharper pullback. I don't know if it's the market here as a whole, but probably Bitcoin, a little profit taken from that last run. But you could see over time, there wasn't really much resistance around 1065, 1070. Your next resistance up top is at 11, right, on the Mara trade. So 87, 88,000 shares, you would expect for this to move up there, no problem. But, hey, this is really the main tool that we look at, but you still want to focus on your long-term levels. If there's any chart level from even the last week, you can kind of hone in on. But here, though, you would expect for the first time to have this get retested as resistance. The first test is the best test. So I don't root for a stock normally to tank, but as far as a learning lesson, I was actually rooting for this to pull back pretty hard here at this point. Obviously, not just to prove the itself as a level, but to possibly get another entry. And that's what happened actually here a little bit later on. Looks like pre-market resistance right here early in the morning, right around $10.20, holding really well going into the 8 o'clock move, held generally under it going into the market open. But even as chippy as it was at this point, this wasn't really looking great as a level when we would want it to be. It ended up providing us that support a little bit later on before we started Traders Talk. So I was looking for the higher high just before as we were going through here. But, I mean, it's like I always say, if it's not breaking higher, there's only one other way it's going to go. We saw TPST up like 3,000% 2 weeks ago. That's why we were so confident with INVO yesterday, as it was up like even 200-300% itself. Well, this thing's up like 30%, probably 40% the last day or so. That's a lot. That's a lot. Don't get me wrong. Do not get old Josh here wrong. That's a lot. But why can't we see more? We've seen it recently on a lot of different trades, albeit perhaps those are lower float, lower volume. If Bitcoin is as volatile as we are led to believe it is, well, what's going to happen when we're actually in the bull market? It's explode. Look what happened in the last bull market with Mara. So I'm not just sitting on my hands hoping for that to happen, but as we make a higher low here, is it not possible to make a higher high over time? Is it not possible? I mean, I think it's possible. We had the iceberg at 11, but, and this is the but, because trading is based around ifs and thens and buts. But if we don't get that higher high, and this makes a lower high from this peak, what often comes with a lower high, I want all of us to write in the chat board here because we covered it just less than 24 hours ago yesterday in class. Lower highs oftentimes come with what? Oftentimes come with what? As hopeful as I am to see that higher high, if we get a lower high, oftentimes we get a lower low. So this ended up failing to hold support. Once it broke under support, that's all she wrote for the time being. This actually dipped right into the iceberg support here that was out there in pre-market. Wow, let's see if that's still out there live. So, I'm tossing a lot at you here with this one trade. There's still a few more stocks I want to cover, questions to address, but more or less, just because this is dropping now doesn't mean that we can't get a bounce later on today. So, that's where I'll say, hey, if you see this back at $10 heading into the afternoon meeting at 2:30, I do. Don't be surprised if you hear me say, oh, this led to a great entry from 950 to 955. This support line could still hold. Now, granted, I'm only saying that from a level perspective. If Bitcoin's dropping like a rock right now, then you just got to set a tight stop, mind you. If you are looking to get the bounce, it's got to be soon. You don't want to have this sink any lower because seemingly my next support line doesn't seem to be until like 920, 919. It's like a weekly doji level, if I'm not mistaken as well. Right there. Back from that. So, hey, even it can drop lower from that point. So something like this actually would be a decent entry, but you really have to play tight D. Super tight D, by the way, like by like a penny or two. Um, yes, I know some traders don't like hearing that because they'll probably retort back and say like, but I get stopped out so often and like, I always see the stock bounce back up after without me. Well, that kind of comes down to two things. A, are you really, and I genuinely mean this, like, are you really entering at the best price, at the best level, close enough to the level? Like, if you're chasing this, you jump in right now at 963 and then it pulls back. What are you down 13 cents before it even breaks the level? So that's where like having a bad entry or an off entry from your price, it's not going to be advantageous altogether, but it's just to say, at least in terms of having your stop blown through. Yeah, I mean, a tighter stop, you're more genuinely led to believe it could take you out. But a tighter entry allows you that maybe extra couple pennies there, right? Even if you have a good entry, you could obviously still get stopped out. You have some traders out there that worry about market makers and, they're going to hunt the stops. And don't focus on that. Focus on you. What I mean by that is this. I think all of us, actually, I didn't show it. Pardon me. I showed it yesterday, not from today. This right here is the Mara iceberg from 950 and 958. So I even rounded down. I even played it a little safer there, try to go a little bit closer to 950 by making this iceberg here at 955 on my chart. So you see this out here. It's out there all morning in pre-market. This is the easy to see support line right here, looking at the pre-market book map. So if you know that's a big level, then you got to have the confidence to take the trade. But you can't have this like pull back again. Look at how much it dropped. Like, you don't want to have this continue to drop. For as much as it did pump up yesterday, I'm not expecting it to drop any lower. And if it does, I'm not expecting it to fill the gap down completely. But why can't it drop down towards like 920? Next support level. So are you really ready to be down 15 cents, 20 cents, 25, 30 cents without setting a stop or setting a stop that's too wide? Again, I'm tossing a lot at us here in a little workshop. I gotta go over this a lot more in a class, but that's where I say, at least with this type of bounce, it could still provide a great move, but every trade begins with the entry. That's it. All right. So with that, actually really quick, got to transition really quickly to another stock that has way less lines. Zero lines actually on this. CLSK. So I said before, I was a big fan of CLSK. They actually own a lot more Bitcoin within their like treasury or fund or whatever you want to call it, compared to what I thought. I thought they're just some crappy small cap stock. Like, there's a few of these that are like miners. This Hut Trade, this SOS looks bad. Like, eventually these will go. BTBT, Bitfarm. We see this crap all the time, for lack of better phrasing. I was pretty blown away by what I saw at CLSK. There was some report coming out like, they own this much Bitcoin. It's actually not too far off from Mara. Oh, shoot. All right. Well, not only that, but JP Morgan came out with some report very recently where they addressed CLSK as like one of their favorite or best up and coming, or best crypto Bitcoin mining stocks to come for next year. That sounds good. That just came out like a couple days ago at that. So I was thinking this could really go and pop. And it did. It popped yesterday. It popped this morning. So altogether on this, what I was looking for, this is more simple. I was looking kind of just right here, pre-market support. Broke under it. Stock breaks below support. Support should initially become resistance. This was right at the open, so there's no thought of entering there. It drops off, right? Well, as I saw Mara push up and Bitcoin and all that stuff, I said, all right, this could be a good entry. As it pushed up above this pre-market support line again at 482, I pulled back and led to a great slingshot up higher from 482 up towards $5 at least. Cheaper stock, it made like an 18-cent push. That alone is nice. And then it moved up even a little higher. So this one, I think we could see here on the daily chart, weekly chart, mind you, weekly chart. Pretty much right there, right? I mean, you see it head on. Look at that. Back from April, May, June, July. Is that not the same as Mara right here? It's basically the same type of level. It's not going to be perfect 100 correlation, but that's where on the CLSK trade, hey, look at this. This was damn strong. No fake outs really here. Just broke over it. Resistance did become support on this weekly candle. It led to a great bounce back up. Like hell of a move this has to be. But for as much as it broke under to support initially, right there. And with that, that's all she wrote. So that's what led to a really good entry on this trade, or a really good exit on this trade, might I say, altogether. If not from $5, then even from just the larger historical. Let's go back to our friend Mara, because I saw CLSK pulling back. So I figure Mara likely to drop off a little bit now. And yep, there we go. All right. So, hey, that's where I cleanly tell you, if you took this entry here, it's like, all right, you look to likely just get stopped out. Now, is there a case to see this now go back up? Could it bounce now? Yeah, that's the purpose of being a day trader. You got to watch this to see what happens. I'm not in the business of catching falling knives. So I don't mind taking a break-even trade, nor do I mind taking like a -1 or -2. Not much more than that. If you take like -5 and you take like 6 or 7 different -5s, that's like a decent stab that you're kind of hitting your hand with, right? You don't want to take a bunch of those. Even still, like taking a bunch of different -1s or 2s, it's not the most encouraging thing out there, but at least that's how you play tight defense. Here, right now, it's not to say, oh, it's just jump back in time, but all right, it didn't crash right away here. It pulled back under the level, but hell, in the next bar, this thing might just crap the bed and break lower. So, here will be pretty important to see what happens. Do we continue downtrend? Do we see higher low now build? That would be the next step as far as seeing like what's to come from the 950 price. But it doesn't look like this wants to bounce just yet. It seems like we have our next level at least right around that 919 for right now. Really quick, I'll pull up Mara here. Yeah, look at this ice. You got an iceberg here on the ask I saw popping up there. This thing's dropping. No harm, no foul. If you go break even, and you might say, oh, you should have gotten out right here. No. I mean, maybe. Like, if you want to take small profits, perhaps. But, like, we've seen Mara make like a $1.50 move here this morning. Why can't it make like a 50-cent bounce? You know what I mean? So there are plenty of times where I don't take the money and run, or where I could or whatever, because it's tiny to me. I'm looking for more. And that's not greed. That's just trying to play strategy. But if you don't get what you want, you got to get out. You got to take the break even. You got to take the -1. And actually, very good question from Anthony in our chat. I got to make sure I don't skip questions, right? All right, so after Anthony, actually, I got to go through chat, go through private chat, go through email, make sure I catch myself. Anthony asked me, what is a -1 in terms of dollars? Very good question. So like on 1,000 shares, let's say for this, -1 is $10 loss. 500 shares, $5 loss. 100 shares, $1 loss. So -1 is like cents per share. How many shares you're trading times the amount of pennies per share that you might lose out on. So let's see what happens here. This might start to be a move here. Let's just got to wait a little bit longer for support to build. The market here kind of looks like it's pulled back along with Mara. I did chart the SPY. So SPY is back to my very strong level here, 422.58, basically like a very strong historical weekly chart level. Held it so well in the morning session. Very impressed with how it did it. But again, the more times it nips this price, it should eventually break lower. So you got to be very careful here across the whole market, I feel. That's where for certain trades like Mara, you got to be patient on to see things play out. Just got to watch everything. In Bitcoin, for this, you got to watch the markets obviously all together. Just lost that there for a second. All right, so let's jump to Leanne. I got a couple questions on Leanne, not my ex-girlfriend, the stock. So it's to say this was dropping off at the market open. It was pretty flat going into 930 though. So, if you thought this could be a great trade for you to look at going into the open, don't blame you. It's not tanking there at the time. You want to see it break out a little bit higher, but obviously at 930, we see right away this thing like craps out. So when you get this strong drop off right away, unless if you're looking for that slingshot, you got to assume it's like, okay, if we get lower high, then we're going to get a lower low. Got to see a higher high, if anything, for this to continue. So I'm going to just actually pull up Bookmap, then I'll go to my traders that had some questions on this stock. So I'm probably just going to do a small little analysis of this myself, then we'll dig into the questions that we had. All right, so with myself being infatuated with the crypto stocks, much like a lot of us, honestly, today, I didn't really trade Levitan. I didn't focus on it or buckle in on it as a like to the point of knowing where the levels are. I was calling it out with Fausto in the morning broadcast, but I don't have the lines on my chart. I can't tell you off the back of my head, what's what. So we had absolutely definitely a support here at 239, 240. There was an order on the bid that got filled. It was only out there for a small while, but this actually pops up and is out there for a little bit too, which complements it. So like 239, 240, I would say would be a pretty strong area there. 3 iceberg level, 350, hey, 50-cent level, whole number kind of deal there. Nothing else really sticking out to me, and that's all right. Now we do have something that sticks out at the market open. Actually, this is the last thing that I was going to say was a great answer to my question earlier. I think Sam brought this up. On top of the basics, the real core basics of 50-cent levels, whole numbers, and just looking at Bookmap, right? Well, specifically, the opening bell print is a pretty important level to watch for any trade. The reason I say that is because, well, looks like our largest iceberg out there on the book after 9:30 certainly is at $3. It's about a 44,000 share, 44,100 share order on the ask. This is 81,600 shares. What's bigger? You tell me. Let me know, folks. What's bigger, 44,000 or 81,000? Let me know. I think that we all know the answer. Obviously. But I got to make you answer it because, hey, how much respect are we or are we not giving the opening print? I know that a lot of us look at this, but everyone should be looking at this. For those that are ignoring this, you're doing yourself a giant disservice. So this was at 248. We would assume 250 to be a level perhaps, but hell, this could have been at 241, and I'd say that this is larger. So it's the price that matters here and the size. At 248, we had a key level right there. What happened after the open? Well, of course, it dropped off. It held resistance there and pulled back. We did have a sudden slingshot, so I want to go into that. What happened around 210, the price? Right here. I don't know if there was a really clear level there as support. I didn't see it in pre-market, but it led to the breakout over. Okay, well, broke over 248 here. Folks, when a stock breaks above a big level, when it breaks above resistance and runs off of it, I'd like to think that resistance would become what? One more time. One more time for the crowd. Support. I don't make the rules up, folks, and I'm not Captain Hindsight as much as I only call myself that. That's because here in Traders Talk, we have the chance to go over this afterwards. But in the live market, you need to be thinking of these principles on your own, right? You're not going to have Josh here asking that question as you're looking at this shaking around very quickly. So, actually very briefly to kind of go into it once more, I have a student that I was on a call with a couple days back, unnamed, and it was a great call. And, just to say that, they gave me a concern that a lot of students, practically every new student gives me, all of this is really fast moving, right? All of this, I'm saying, not just the screen, me. I am fast talking. I speak fast. I'm flapping my gums at 9:30 like I'm an auctioneer. Fausto too. Trust me, we get it. And on top of us, it's the platform. It's the amount of stocks that we're calling out. It's, the fast moving numbers, the bright colors as I describe it. All we got to do is focus on the core philosophies of momentum and charting, really those two. There are some things that I'll look at that Fausto doesn't necessarily use himself. And that's okay. He keeps it extremely simple, keeps it super simple, right? So he'll really go into like, on certain occasions, like indicators and like, oh, Fibonacci, MACD, RSI, and like, to each their own. But if anyone has like 5 or 6 of these stupid indicators on their screen, it's making things way too overwhelming. That's how you're like making the ball go faster in terms of baseball. You're increasing the speed of the pitch, making things too fast, too overwhelming. You don't know your left hand from your right. So yeah, Mara, I had a lot of lines on that chart, right? So to each their own there. You don't need to be as crazy as old Josh on that. But when it comes to the opening print, and when it comes to like a break above resistance becomes support. And from there, that was all she wrote. So that's basically what I wanted to dig into there. Now, I had a question from a student on this trade. They got in on this position. They took it 2 times at 235. So their 2 trades were as follows. They got in at 235. They got out at 236, just break even. Said it was slow. And then they got in again at 252, and then they got out at 259. I typically don't enter 2 times, but maybe should I? Okay, that's a great question for my student there. And to answer that, I mean, it all comes down to how confident you are in the big level that you're risking thousands of your hard-earned dollars on. Notice how I phrase it that way, right? I'm being very blunt with that because not directly to this trader. I know they have their head on straight, honestly, from our dialogue and coaching. But for like everyone, I'm speaking to like 120 people right now. So it's like, I got some new traders with me too. And for those traders, I really am concerned about, like, in terms of, you know what, you can't just jump into a trade to jump in. If you're doing that, then there's no good cause, and that's not going to take you anywhere. You're going to be spinning your tires in the mud over the next year. You got to have reason and validity to enter a trade. So with that, that's where I emphasize big levels. Okay, if there's no big level, then I'm not entering a trade at all, let alone twice. I get stopped out oftentimes, take break evens oftentimes because I'm here all throughout the day. And with that, I'm not hitting home runs or doubles every day or every trade, I should say. There are times where I get stopped out often, and then I'll make my big move up, a la Mara here. You see a tiny retracement back up where that could have led to a potential move. So there could be more to come on this over time. It's simply to say that for a trade that I get stopped out on, if I am 100% confident, not just speculative, but if I am 100% confident of the level I'm using, then I will take that trade a second time. Yeah, even third time. Now, though, what I mean by that is I'm setting tight stops, break evens, -2. I'm not like doing more than that. You keep hammering away and taking -8, -10. That's where you're going to get like really hit hard. So let's go back to that Leanne trade. Even right now, trying to squeeze up there. But let's say, I don't know, 250 was the. Okay, let's say you didn't think about the opening print and you were focused on 250. You jumped in over 250. It looks good. And then it pulls back and it stops you out on this candle. Notice it breaks under 250 by a penny. It's like, shoot, it didn't go higher. It might tank. Well, if it stops you out, and then instantly after it stops you out, this damn thing pops back up again. In terms of day trading, like, we know we're not holding on to this all day, let alone maybe the next 30 minutes. But if we see a stock stop us out and then it very, very, very quickly moves back above that, not to say very too often, very big level, that you are 100% confident on using, then that's where I'll look to jump back in. Like just before on Mara, as I'm talking right here, is it possible that could have been a nice entry on this trade? Yeah. Like even here, if you got stopped out from the first attempt and then you jump back in on this, all right, as long as you're playing tight defense, you're doing the right things necessary to anticipate a higher low. Now, not every trade could I say that about, because not every trade am I bullish on. If there's some crap pharmaceutical company that already pumped and dumped, I'm not going to be that keen to think it's going to break out again. So this doesn't look good, that's for sure. I wouldn't be trying to hammer away on this trade because of how it looks right now. The Leanne clearly didn't break lower from this area, I would have no interest in this right now, or at least where my cursor is. This is starting to pique curiosity again. So let's just see what happens on level 4 right now. There could always be another trade if there's a clean break of resistance. Well, folks, our next resistance seemingly is at 350. We had a level here, but that's just from choppy consolidation. So there's nothing there that I could have used as like a level. It's really just 350. So if this could snap over 350, we still even have this iceberg ahead at 375 that popped up a little bit later on. Right there. So I wouldn't be too vested in this until this can really like flip 350 into support at least. Then from there, you hope to see the higher high up over 375. This thing still has a long ways to go for this to be like an actually good trade. But, you know, if it could do what I said, then there's a chance for this to go. That's how we take it. All right. So really quick, folks, 11:53. Haven't even gotten to my emails yet. Haven't even gotten to the, even though I took it off my book map. I said that there was a chance we'd go over it if we had time. The INVO from yesterday. Geez, this thing was up 400%, right? So basically what happened here, if anything, if you can at least kind of follow along right here, you see a line at 178, right? We had resistance, I believe it was at 175. I may have moved that line up a few pennies. We had an iceberg at 175 yesterday morning in pre-market going into the open. So it was out there on level 4, and more or less it broke over that price, and it got halted on the way up. It actually popped up so fast, it got halted here, reopened, popped up again, and then it, I believe, got halted one more time here. And then it reopened, got halted one more time on the way down. Very chaotic trade, very unbridled trade as far as like pop and drop, high risk, high reward, thankfully for this. High reward, thankfully, and paid off. But I think it just goes to show, I think you see what I see right there. It's pretty common sense. That iceberg at 175 in pre-market, that resistance level got flipped into support, didn't it? And this ended up making my famed under and over. Broke under, broke over, run, game over. All right, so really quickly, actually just checking my email right now. I had a question from a trade on the Levitan stock as well. I hope I addressed their question there at least. They unnamed. They had said that they made the wrong entry and lost money. So let me just show the chart again. So the real level was the opening print, that 248, but they said 276. So let's just take a look at that there really briefly. A ton of buying right here. What the hell is that? All right, I got a ton of green here, a lot of green dots. Looks like a ladder on the bid here too, trying to squeeze up. Depends on what time they entered, but for this to be a resistance, it was out there for a little while, moving up and up and up. The first test is the strongest test. We say this like every day. So right here, and I just say this out loud because you see the reaction. This right here is extremely easy for us to anticipate. The first test of a resistance like that, we would expect to see hold or be a pop and drop, be the best test. Now, after that, what happens? Oh, yeah, bingo. Breaks over it, flipped into support, move up. Simple as that. That is legitimately as simple as that. But again, like that is something that we talk so frequently about, just even in phase 1 we did yesterday. Less than 24 hours ago, we covered that. That was my whole like mantra. The first test is the strongest test. First test is the best test, like that. All right. Quick shout out to my friend Alex. Alex, one of our new gold students, said no question, but he's back to the salt mines this week. He was looking for a big day on Bitcoin yesterday. Got it. He's a big fan of my Mara and CLSK. I'm just wishing him well. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it moving. Let's see if there's any other emails. Maybe I thought I saw an extra one out there. If there's any questions, folks, I skipped. If you see anything that I did not answer just yet, definitely let me know here in the chat. But I think that otherwise we may have covered all bases here. Oh, from Luciano. Luciano, one of our members here in the chat here, actually. My apologies, actually. Where do you set your stop loss on a trade? So I'm going to be a pain in the ass here. I'm going to tell you that I have a full 60-minute class in the phase 2 stock course. We did this a month ago in September. It's called Setting Stops and Taking Profits. That's like I have 60 full minutes to kind of go over that one subtopic. So it's all in phase 2 there. The too long didn't read version, which doesn't really help us right now. Like, helps you at least learn the abstracts, but this one workshop is not going to make you a good trader. I hope that trial members realize that it takes months of screen time and class time to really have this ingrained. But to answer Luciano, though, truthfully, it is to say every stock is situational. Basically, I'm going to be very conservative with my stops. I set it basically right under my big level, but every stock presents its own unique levels to work off of. So that is the best answer that I can give you in the time that I have left, honestly. So I'm conservative with my stop setting. I move it up at times, especially the more I'm in the money. But once I jump in the trade, it's like really right under my big level, not at my big level, but under my big level. And it'll kind of work from there. From Joyce, is the first test the best at any time of the day? The more a stock is showing direction already and it has a resistance ahead, you should expect that resistance to hold. That's my answer there. So that's not necessarily time dependent, right? But like, hey, Leanne, the more this goes up and up and up and up, you expect 1030 to be reversal time. So that's like kind of part of the answer with timing there, I guess. But then you could say, all right, well, where's the next big level? 350. Okay, I guess it actually hit there. But even here at this point, it ended up popping, pulling back down. If there was resistance there by any stretch of the measure, then I would expect that to hold. That would be my thought. Just look what happened on Mara. Come on. Right here at the, I'll delete this line now because now I can pretty it up a little bit. But like right here, 1067, that historical first test, best test. Didn't matter if this was at 10:30 in the morning or at 12 p.m. or 2 p.m. If this was the first test, I would have expected, I did expect that to hold, and I would expect that to hold regardless of the time of the day. Oh boy, Sam, at the horn here. I don't know if I have enough time to answer this one. This is a finance philosophical question. That leads me to say I might not have enough time. Why do people enter huge icebergs on the ask, which will suppress the price they want to sell at? Sam, actually, I could answer that here very quickly, but I have more time in phase 2, not even phase 1. Phase 2, I actually have a lot more time to kind of go over it. But the answer that will help you here, at least, is maybe those orders are not meant to get filled. Maybe those orders are being used as facilitators to squeeze the stock in a direction. We don't know what the intent of that order is, but we don't know what the intent of that order is in terms of, is that actually meant to get filled or is that used as a facilitator? When you see a big fat iceberg on the ask, you know that's a sell order. You know that's resistance. But when you see it pop up like that, yeah, initially I think, oh, shoot, there's a good chance it might pull back down right away. That's the first thought that you should have. There's a lot that would go into this answer, Sam. I can't answer it here with what we have left. I got to finish up right now. Jump into a coaching call right now with one of our students. Perhaps if you want to address that on private chat with me, Sam, I could answer that with you later on today if you want to message me. But otherwise, folks, we are going to finish up. All right. So, hey, all of us collectively inside our trading room, private chat me there. You certainly know how to access me there. But all of us on YouTube, Facebook Live, Twitter, etc. I hope that you folks enjoyed this week's edition of Traders Talk. Just every Tuesday morning live on social media. But if you wanted to get the full rundown, get access to everything, myself and Fausto himself there too, inside our live trading room, just scan that QR code on the top left of the stream, get you access for a week-long trial inside our live trading room, get you all the education, the chat, everything that you need to know in terms of becoming a consistently profitable day trader. We look forward to seeing you there, but our next audio broadcast will be at 2:30 Eastern later on today, folks. All right, we'll talk to you all soon.